Good afternoon, teacher and classmates. My name is Natalie Rebolledo, and today, along with my group, which is conformed by Daniel Duque, Angela Castro, Valentina Fuentes, and Antonio Figueroa, we are going to discuss the following learning problem. And it says, we have a class of 4-year primary school students at a private school who are not interested in English and that are used to the grammar translation method used by their former teacher. Our main purpose is to make the students able to communicate orally. However, they have stated that they feel anxious in class and their motivation has decreased drastically. Therefore, based on this problem, we will start the presentation by addressing first the previous method of teaching English. Then we will provide some new theories to solve this case, and finally we will present some examples of activities to carry out in the classroom that can help us achieve our mentioned purpose.
To begin with, we need to analyze the background of this case in order to give context to the current situation. For this, we need to explain the grammar translation method. Here, learners study the parts of the language, the grammar and the vocabulary to translate text from the foreign language into the native language. Additionally, the goal of this method is to enable students to read and write in the target language. That being said, we will observe the positive and negative consequences of this particular teaching. On one hand, we find some advantages. First, students can learn an appreciable amount of vocabulary for both the target language and their mother tongue. Besides, students gain experience for their reading and writing skills, which can initially help them develop their speaking, as they should already know some vocabulary and grammar. Therefore, they only need to put these abilities into practice. However, we also have some disadvantages. To start, this method focuses only on reading and writing, which is unnatural compared to the usual manner that children acquire their mother tongue, in which listening is the initial input they are exposed to and speaking their first type of output. As a result, this method causes a lack of speaking and listening skills. Finally, this method is not interactive and engaging for students, as they play a passive role in the classroom and the only activity they do all the time consists of translating text.
Therefore, as a consequence of the grammar translation method, we will introduce the natural approach, which is a method of language teaching developed by Stephen Krashen and Tercy Terrell in 1983, that can help us with solutions for this case. At the same time, since this approach was also created by Krashen, we will make use some aspects of his monitor model due to its a great influence on this method. To begin with, the purpose of the natural approach is to develop communicative skills, and it is mainly intended to be used with beginning learners, which is the reason why we consider it is appropriate to address our problem. Furthermore, it is necessary to clarify that this approach has an acquisition view of language, not a learning view. The important difference here is that, as Krashen states, acquisition allows the acquired knowledge to be used in spontaneous interactions, while learned knowledge cannot be used so spontaneously. Therefore, since our mainly objective is to make students able to communicate orally, and the acquisition approach will be more effective.
That being said, we will present the 4 basic principles of the natural approach. The first principle is called comprehension precedes production. To achieve oral communication as teachers, we need to provide comprehensible input to the students, because just like babies, they need to listen to the language first and then produce it. For this reason, English will be the main language used in classes, along with non-verbal and visual information, in order to facilitate the comprehension of students. However, sometimes the use of the mother tongue could be necessary, as students may not understand everything we explain due to the fact that they are in 4th year of primary school and their level of English may be not good enough. As a response to this situation, we need to be flexible, because if students struggle with English, they could get frustrated, thus resulting in a loss of interest in the language that could make our mission harder to achieve.
The second principle claims that production is allowed to emerge in stages, Within this method, the authors identify certain stages in the acquisition of speech. First, we have the comprehension stage. The aim of this stage is to extend students' vocabulary in the long-term memory. The idea is to give context to the vocabulary by the use of gestures and the performance of actions. Nevertheless, in our particular problem, students have already acquired part of this stage through the extensive reading done in the grammar translation method. As a result, we can facilitate this process. Then we have the early speech and speech emergence stage. Students start to speak gradually only after receiving rich and comprehensible inputs, and when they do so, they begin to answer simple questions, saying single words and some phrases. Therefore, since speech production comes slowly, we should never force students to speak if they are not ready, because that could make them anxious, and we consider essential to avoid that situation. For the same reason, errors should not be corrected unless they interfere with the original message, because that could also discourage students from talking in English.
The third principle explains that the syllabus consists of communicative goals. This means that the focus of each classroom activity is organized by topic, not grammatical structure. Therefore, we need to give context to the language in order for students to be able to use it in their daily life situations. Because only when they have communicative goals, the grammar can be subconsciously acquired. And finally, the last principle suggests that all the activities done in the classroom must aim to lower the affective filters. As we said earlier, it is important for learners to be comfortable when they are learning a new language, because if that is not the case and they are in a stressful environment, the affective filter raises, thus blocking the processing of input. For that reason, we need to provide activities interesting for them, and we must aim to establish a good rapport with the students, because a friendly environment can facilitate this aspect.
Now, in terms of classroom activities, Terrell proposed 4 categories that can facilitate language acquisition. Firstly, we have content such as subject matter. Secondly, we have affective humanistic such as students' own ideas. Thirdly, we have games. And lastly, we have problem-solving activities. Consequently, based on the syllabus, the topics used in each activity must be interesting and meaningful, so that the students' attention is focused on the content of the utterances instead of the forms. Besides, the activities must be appropriate for the learner's level of English. However, students will have to start working with this new method gradually, because as a consequence of their previous experiences, they do not possess a high level of speaking to interact with others immediately. Therefore, the interactions at first should not be extensive. For the same reason, mistakes are inevitable, and they should not be directly corrected, since that could affect the student's confidence. Instead, as the interaction approach advises, we should make use of implicit feedback in the form of negotiations. As a result, the students can notice the errors by themselves. For example, asking, "Is this what you mean?" instead of telling students that they have said something wrong.
That being said, we will propose some activities to carry out in the classroom that can motivate the students to speak without being too anxious. The first one, dialogues. These are open dialogues of daily life topics that allow the students to develop creativity. With the help of guidelines, students have to fill the gaps with their own ideas to maintain a communicative interaction. Students choose words from their mental lexicon according to the context of the conversation. Finally, as their ability to participate in conversational exchange improves, the students can start working with the creation of their own dialogues. The second one, interviews. Students are divided in 2 pairs and are given a series of questions to ask their partner. Interviews can be focused on the student's own life and personal interest in order to engage them in the activity. For example, what is your hobby? My hobby is reading books. What about you? My hobbies are watching TV and playing football.
3. Task and series. The students are asked to generate a series of actions for a specific task, such as their morning routine. These activities can be performed by the student in order to give them a meaningful context. Besides, they will describe all the components of this action in a specific order. For instance, I wake up, I get up, I go to the bathroom, and I wash my face. 4. Games. Games can take many forms, and they are an excellent option to motivate students. As an example, in one activity, a student pretends to be a famous person, and their classmate asks yes or no questions to guess which celebrity the student is. Questions such as "Are you a man?" or "Are you dead?" are usually asked in this game. Then, in another game, students will receive a set of illogical combinations, and they will be asked to identify what's wrong with them. This can help to develop logical reasoning. As an example, a fish flying, a tree speaking, a rock running, etc.
In conclusion, all these activities can decrease the anxiety of the students as they are in a comfortable environment in which they are not forced to speak. At the same time, these activities increase students' motivation as they involve abundant participation and topics according to their interests. And moreover, it is good to remember that these activities are unquestionably suitable for these students since they are still kids who love to play games. And finally, once students have been exposed to rich input provided for us, the teachers, they will start to communicate orally. At first, they may not speak very fluently because of their level of English, but throughout time, they will definitely know the basics to express themselves naturally in their second language.
Thanks for your attention. This was the end of our presentation.